This video is brought to you by Banks.
You know, putting together this video turned out to be quite a hassle for some reason. I mean, I know what that reason is, but it took me a while to grab onto something that makes sense. And I think I did. But before we get to it, if you end up enjoying this video, subscribe, because...
Having spent the week with the iPhone 16 Pro, I believe I figured out its biggest problem. And no, it's not the lack of Apple intelligence inside the box. The issue, I think, is twofold: the design and the existence of a phone known as the iPhone 16. Allow me to explain. You see, the 16 Pro reminds me a lot of something like the Tesla Model 3. We have a very familiar silhouette that has seen few facelifts since its introduction a long time ago, 2020 if I'm not mistaken. Visually, the changes appear minimal. A slightly larger display, a hair bigger overall footprint, and the addition of something called camera control. That's about it, right? Not exactly. If you're like me and you're coming from last year's 15 Pro, the only real way to feel a visual difference is by switching colors. That being said, I'm not suggesting anyone should upgrade because that would be absolutely ridiculous. I'm doing this only because of my work, this channel. So, goodbye natural titanium and hello fresh black titanium. Being now even more stripped out of things that I can actually unbox, I wanted to take most of my experience and thoroughly prepared my SIM ejector tool, only to realize that I actually use an eSIM. And apparently that made all of you laugh during my ultimate iPhone home screen setup video, which I'll link at the end of this one. Now, I know, this Gotham-inspired color comes with the inevitable dust and lint buildup around the camera housings, but you know what, I'm okay with that. I'm sure most other people will be okay too, and they will actually be most likely okay with pretty much all the other colors that are available. After all, those of us who lead hectic lives, especially parents, will surely slap a case on the back. Unlike last year, I was prepared, as I was lucky enough to receive a couple of screen protectors ahead of time, which really gave me some breathing room. I'm not sure how the glass improvement of the new 16s will unfold in my day-to-day life, but I know for a fact that my last year's 15 Pro got scratched literally out of nowhere a week after using it. A deeper groove I kept being reminded of the last 365 days. So this time around, protection from day one. Anyway, at this point, transferring things from the 15 Pro was pretty much straightforward. Since I used both an iPhone and an Android device, I had no reasons for concerns about switching between OSs. Now, I did keep the 15 Pro around for a while, just in case I noticed something missing, and that span of time with both of those devices in front of me really allowed me to analyze what the actual physical differences are. Looking at both of them, I have to give credit where credit is due. The almost non-existent bezels of the 16 Pro are actually super impressive in person. The fact that they're so thin and most of all even all around can only give me a headache trying to imagine how Apple pulled this off. See, this is the company that have always been great at making something that seemingly looks the same actually appear new and fresh. No one can beat Apple at incremental changes done right. What I thought would feel incremental here as well is the increase in size, something that can only be observed or even noticed when the previous model, the 15 Pro, is present and put next to the 16 Pro. What I'm trying to say here is actually, great, because the 16 Pro feels exactly the same as the 15 Pro in terms of weight, distribution, the feeling of lightness, and overall presence. The screen size increase, however, does make a difference, which is more apparent when those two devices are right next to each other. Look at the size, for example. The 16 Pro might seem negligibly taller, but when it comes to scaling and how the UI looks on the front, this is a plus in my book. I'd say that you can think of this device as a 16 Pro Plus, but not even close to something as big as the Max. The additional real estate is actually visible and something that pays off in both reading and browsing scenarios. Same goes for the typing experience. The almost identical yet wider keyboard helps me make fewer mistakes when typing, which paired with the predictive tools results in a very solid typing experience.
Time for a very non-scientific table wobbling test between the 16 Pro and the 15 Pro. I guess you could say it wobbles more, but do you really care?
What's noticeably different here from last year's iPhone is how the new cases fit. Fortunately, the team at Banks is ahead of the curve with their latest armor tint cases, which feature precise and smooth cutouts for all the new additions, including the camera control button. Using these cases feels like you're rocking the iPhone bare, thanks to their ultra-thin and lightweight design crafted from 1000D Kevlar fiber. One of my favorite features is the undeniably strong magnetic connection on the back, which securely holds the MagSafe accessories in place. The screen protector I mentioned earlier is also from Banks. It's called the Glass Warrior. It offers extreme scratch and shatter protection, and what's truly impressive is that it somehow leaves no fingerprints while maintaining the clarity of the display. My personal quirky favorite is Banks' phone grip and stand. It shares the same Kevlar pattern as the cases, and it offers what I believe to be the best kickstand on the market, along with added grip for comfort. You can get 15% off Banks' incredible lineup of accessories by visiting the first link in the description or using my code ThisIsE15. During my week of use, there were only 4 things that stood out to me. Now, whether that was something to do with using iOS 18 beta that had been rocking for a while, or the fact that the 16 Pro is a brand new phone, I really did feel a difference in battery life. My last year's 15 Pro kept fighting for its life midway throughout my days. Keep in mind that I'm actually using a foldable as my primary phone, so having to top up the 15 after lunch made no sense to me, even with the always on turned off. The whole time I was trying to stay on top of all this, hence the reason I showcased the Device Monitor app in my latest video. Now I can't say or be sure how accurate Device Monitor is, but the 15 Pro is constantly operating with its RAM maxed out at 95% or higher. What's interesting here is that things aren't much different with the 16 Pro as well. Even with more RAM and no Apple Intelligence yet, it still maxes out the memory constantly, which makes me think that the default of the iOS is what it is.
You know how Apple says not to kill your active apps because they would take a lot more memory to start back up and stay active. Even the new 16 Pro almost always stays at around 97-98% of its RAM bandwidth. So the only way that you can free up memory is actually kill some apps. And if you do that, which of course takes a little bit of time because there's no way to kill them all. Oh, killed this app as well. But now, if we open the memory app and clear the cache, we might actually see some available memory. So let's check it out. Boom, 69%. I don't know, it's just a fun observation. Let me know what you think.
Anyways, despite my weird observations, having set the new iPhone from the ground up, I'm really happy to report that I'm pretty much covered throughout my day, with even some room to spare. And yes, always on is turned on. As I've recently became a fan of wire charging for both protection and speed, I was super happy to see the iPhone finally juicing up, faster than ever before. With real USB-C speeds of about 25 watts, it is now much easier to top up while doing something else and breaking the pattern of nightstand MagSafe charging.
So to give you a report of my 15 Pro from last year, which I purchased right around the same time, it is at 90% health after some 375-ish, 375 cycle counts, which to me is not optimal, but it is what it is. Now, interestingly, the same 15 Pro, but the Max model that we purchased at the exact same time we bought the smaller one, is at 100% with 194 cycle counts. What I plan to do this year is actively charging wired with the new 15 Pro. And alongside that, I'll go to the settings of iOS 18 and reduce the charging capacity to something like 95 or even 90% to see how this will affect That alongside wire charging will affect the overall preservation of the battery and report to you in, let's say, September, October of 2025.
Now, unlike the action button from last year, the camera control not button is something more people will be able to take advantage of. It has a lot more room to grow, the simplest of which is being yet another way to quickly launch the camera.
Something that stood out to me, whenever I pick up the 16 Pro, I tend to accidentally press the camera button, which isn't a problem all the time, but many times I might end up starting up the camera, or you can just grab it and just take a picture, which, you know, is not ideal because the button is very sensitive.
One example of additional versatility I showcased last time was mapping the lock screen camera button to a third-party app like Lightroom or Final Cut Camera, for example, so that I can have a clear separation between my work, photo and video shoots and the personal gallery. Half pressing it or interacting with it, especially with a case with a cutout, is not something that I see myself utilizing, once the novelty is gone, but pressing it to launch the camera and quickly pressing it to snap a picture, I'm all for it. That is something that may change over time, so alongside my camera observations, this is something that I'll have to get back to in the long-term review.
What impressed me more was actually not something that is related to the button,
which is audio mixing, something that you can do in post-production and actually take the most out of the built-in mics of the iPhone. This is truly impressive, especially
in loud environment like this, where I have a lot of ambient sounds all over the place. So we have 4 presets to choose from.
Cinematic, in-frame, the standard one, and I forgot what the fourth one was. But the end result is actually amazing. So this is really groundbreaking for people that do social media content with just their smartphone devices.
Which brings me to the number 4 thing that stood out to me, the 5x telephoto camera. This is something that I can really appreciate because it really brings the most out of the family moments closer without ruining the magic of what's going on. This is a feature that was previously exclusive to the Max models, but I'm glad that people who prefer smaller phones can now enjoy it as well. The 3x on the 15 Pro was really something that I could easily live without. In fact, I barely ever used it. It didn't really pull me far enough to what's happening, nor did it make any other landscape or portrait situations look any special. With the improved sensors, the missing 48 megapixel ultra-wide sensor, as well as the seamless transition between lenses, especially in video, this is a camera I can trust. Very much like previous generations.
What I can trust is iOS 18. Let me show you. So, you know how in my previous Ultimate iPhone home screen setup, I showed you how you can organize your control center, all neat and tidy. Well, the thing is that if I rotate to horizontal mode and bring down the control center, I'm presented with this hodgepodge, which makes absolutely no sense. At first, I thought I can organize this just like on the iPad, horizontal and vertical separate organization, but that's not possible. I cannot organize this in any way. Furthermore, I can't rotate or switch between how the control center displays. I have to exit, rotate, enter again, and then the other way around.
Which leads me to iOS 18. It was fun playing around with it while it was under a public beta, but now that it's here, shipped and packaged in this brand new device that costs over $1,000 in a reasonable storage tier, doesn't really give it justice. And again, I'm not talking about Apple intelligence. For the first time since Apple ditched my favorite skeuomorphic design and shocked the world with iOS 7, I see a solid hardware package missing overpromised features that are not here, with basic others that are just below average. The Photos app is a big miss in my opinion, so are, little glitches and annoyances throughout, freezes, stutters, and others. Things I could perhaps overlook or stress less about if I had the whole, package with the AI and everything, or things I would turn a blind eye to if it was a new form factor like a foldable, for example.
Where is my favorite call icon that was here in the early betas of iOS 18 that was preventing me from accidentally calling someone from my list? It's gone. Why is it gone? It was such a necessity, in my opinion.
Now, consider everything I just said and think about the regular iPhone 16, which unfortunately I don't have in front of me. For the first time in a long time, the line differentiating the 16 Pro from the so-called peasant version is slowly becoming thinner and thinner, or blurrier, depending on how you see it. This year, the 16, which I was really tempted to grab in black, is uncompromisingly good. Despite missing some higher-end features that only video nerds or photographers might drool about, there's really only one downside worth mentioning, and that's the 60 Hz refresh rate. Aside from that, the 16 is a super compelling package that makes it hard for me to recommend this baller model. This, of course, is a first impression video, so I might be surprised down the line. No matter which iPhone you have though, you can always spice it up and make it yours using the ideas and principles I showcase in my Ultimate iPhone Home Screen episode right here. Like and subscribe to the channel as well as my newsletter, and as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. This is Z, over and out.